Welcome everyone to the Business Mastery Strategy Session for April 2018. I'm your host, Annie York. Before we begin, and you guys probably know the drill, let's take care of a few small things to make sure everything goes smoothly throughout today's presentation. First thing first, get yourself into state. Everybody knows what getting yourself into state means. You can do something physical, jump up and down. In our last Business Mastery webinar, we definitely had some physical stuff going on. People were pumped up. But the most important thing right now is not necessarily to get your heart rate going, but to get away from distractions. So get away from other people, turn your phone off, or put it into do not disturb mode. And you can also use that full screen feature on this webinar so that you don't get those incoming emails or notifications that distract you and drive you crazy and make you want to navigate away from the window. Also, if you could please mute your audio, because we want to make sure that everybody can hear our speaker. We have it automatically muted for everyone, but just in case, we want to make sure there's no glitches. Keep in mind that this next hour is for you to really invest in yourself. So make the most of the time by paying full attention to what's in front of you. This session is full of participation. We're going to be asking you questions. As you guys know, there's that Q&A box where you can ask questions for our speaker. So if he says something that really resonates with you and you want to ask a question for him to answer at the end, or for me to interject and ask that question, sometimes it's really nice when we do it in real time. Just type it in that box. Our producer is in there monitoring all your questions. If it's something that she can answer, she'll do it herself. But if it's something that she wants to ask our speaker, she'll just send it right to me, and then I can interject and ask. Last thing is social. So to the right of that question box, you'll see the chat box, and our producer has put in these direct links to the places on Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn where you can share the webinar and join the conversation around it. All right, you guys ready? Today's webinar is going to be completely different from any ones we've had in the past, because this is not a presentation with slides. I know, shocker. Everybody right now is going, whoa, what? This is... There's no slides? How is this a webinar? Instead, it's going to be an informal conversation where our speaker shares some of his proven tools and strategies on networking. Yep, as you guys know, from your reminder, from your login, this is today's topic. We're talking about networking. Although it's a terrible word, right? As many of you know, the thing is, you can educate yourself to the best of your ability. You can work harder than anyone else, and you can, as Tony says, add massive value wherever you go. But if you don't know the right people, or actually more accurately, if you don't put yourself in the right position, you might not get what you want. It's about creating opportunity for yourself. And as Tony says, the meeting of preparation with opportunity generates the offspring we call luck. So you're not lucky, you're just prepared, and you put yourself in the way of opportunity. The problem with networking, though, is that for many people, it's completely nerve-wracking. It's not just because they think of it as extra work or that it's emotionally exhausting, which for some people who consider themselves introverts, that's what it feels like. It feels really tiring. But a big thing is that it opens you up to rejection. You feel really vulnerable. But do you guys also remember what Tony says about rejection? It breeds obsession, right? And there's no real success without rejection. The more rejection you get, the better you are. The more you've learned, the closer you are to your outcome. So if you can handle rejection, you'll learn everything you need. And if you can also handle rejection socially, in social situations, and learn from it and get better, imagine what you'll be like in a highly professional environment when you're working on something, you're presenting it, rejection, rejection, rejection. And you guys have all heard the stories about all these companies now where the founder was rejected 72 times trying to get funding, but the 73rd, they got funding, and now they're a billion-dollar company. So today we're going to learn about how to put yourself out there, how to build your network, and how to benefit from that network from a person who's a true expert at networking. Our guest today is Jordan Harbinger. He was the host of The Art of Charm, that's right, it's called The Art of Charm podcast for 11 years. So basically when podcasting started. And it's a show that you guys probably know. It was regularly in the iTunes top 50 and was downloaded over 4 million times a month. He's now the host of his solo show called, aptly, The Jordan Harbinger Show. When Jordan comes on, I think I want to make him do like his music in the beginning because it sounds so fancy. The concept of the show, though, is to tap into the wisdom of the world's top performers, from legendary musicians to intelligence operatives, iconoclastic writers, and visionary change makers. If this sounds familiar to you guys, it's because this is what Tony does as well. Not everybody is an expert at something, but if you can put yourself in proximity to the people who are experts, you can learn from them, model them, and do what they do just as good, if not better. So Jordan, before he started his podcasting career, he used to be a Wall Street attorney. He learned 5 languages. He spent several years abroad in Europe and in the developing world, including South America, Eastern Europe, and the Middle East. So he's very well traveled. He worked for various governments and NGOs overseas. He's traveled through war zones, and he's been kidnapped twice. This is part of his bio. I'm reading it to you guys, but you're not going to hear the kidnapping story. We just heard it before we went on the air, though. He does say, though, that the only reason he's still alive and kicking is because he can basically talk his way into and out of pretty much any type of situation. This is definitely a skill that everybody could use. So let's see if he can talk his way through a business mastery webinar. BM grads, welcome Jordan Harbinger too.
Thanks for having me on, Anna.
Sure.
So this is an interesting topic that's sort of near and dear to my heart, because I didn't start off thinking, I got to become this master networker. It's so important. When I was younger, I worked on Wall Street, but before that, I went to high school in Michigan. You may be familiar with the school that I went to in Michigan. And I was one of those guys who studied, but I kind of didn't think about making relationships for my future because I was in school and none of that stuff seemed important at all. And then as I got to college, I realized, oh, everyone's really smart. What am I going to do? I used to be able to just study and then get good grades. So since everybody was drinking their face off in college, my competitive advantage shifted from being smart or working on studying and getting it done to I can outwork everyone even though I'm not smarter than everyone. And that was a skill that took me all the way through law school. Then, of course, I get to Wall Street and everyone's smart. Everyone's a really hard worker. What am I going to do? My competitive advantage has been totally wiped out. And I thought, I'm going to get fired. They're going to think, why did we hire this guy? This person doesn't belong here. I can't believe that this person made it slip through the cracks. And as we know, this is called imposter syndrome, and it's super common among any sort of professional or high performer in general, because we tend to be hard on ourselves. And I think a lot of people watching and listening right now probably have had that thought when they started their business, or if they had a job or career before this, they probably felt some sort of imposter syndrome as well. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to work from home, and then it'll take them longer to figure out that I don't belong here. And then therefore it'll take them longer to fire me. Therefore I'll have a longer runway, and maybe I'll be able to figure out how to be a lawyer and sneak by. So there was a partner that had hired me. He was never in the office. And I thought, oh, he must never be here because he works from home. So I'm going to talk to him and find out what the magic cheat code combination of words is to get me to work from home instead of working in the office. So I met up with him and I said, so Dave, how come you work from home? You know, you're young, you're a partner. How do I get to work from home? And he goes, well, I don't work from home that much. And I said, well, you're never in the office. What's going on? And he said, well, I'm outside the office bringing in business. And I said, well, how does that work? How are you getting business for the firm? And this is a guy from Brooklyn with a tan. So I was like, okay, he knows something that other people don't know. And he goes, look, I play golf, I do jujitsu, I play racquetball, play squash, I go cycling, I jog. And I was like, when do you work? And he said, literally, man, the work that I do for the firm is I'm more valuable outside the office than I am inside this office. Generating business, hanging out with investment bankers, showing them that the firm has cool partners that are responsible, responsive, generating those relationships. That is more important than, hey, did you file this brief on time? He goes, no offense, I've got guys like you for that. And I thought, oh, there's this other third path that could get me a competitive advantage that nobody seems to know about. Everyone's trying to outwork each other. So we're all working 7 days a week, 20 hours a day. People are trying to outsmart each other. So when they're not billing hours, they're reading books about real estate finance or some other just horrible topic that nobody cares about. And then nobody's working on fostering relationships. They might be brown-nosing the boss, but they're not out generating relationships. And when I asked Dave how that worked, he really couldn't articulate it. As most networkers who are quote unquote naturally good at this do, he just went, oh man, you just got to get out there and, reach out to some people you went to school with and just be cool about it. And then they'll throw you business. And I thought, I think there's a few pieces missing here. That's kind of like ... profit, right? What's in the dots? What the heck is in the dots? So I started to try to figure this out. And I took these sort of Dale Carnegie courses where it's like a guy in a sweater vest at the YMCA. And he's like, oh, have a firm handshake and look people in the eye. And that was great. But if somebody doesn't like you, it's not because you don't have a firm handshake or you broke eye contact 2 milliseconds before the other person did. That's not the reason that they're not doing business with you. You've got to be somebody that people know, that people like, and that people trust. And a firm handshake and eye contact, it's kind of like 1% of it, but it's not the whole equation. And this really changed the way that I look at work forever, because I knew something was missing, but I also was starting to think, nobody can actually teach this to me. I'm going to have to figure it out myself. And whenever I started looking for people who were already well networked, I found people who had been born into wealthy families, people who had a lot of money, people whose parents were founders of companies or worked in a charity for 30 years and knew everyone. Somebody whose parents, one of the kids was like the mayor of our town, his nephew or something. And I thought, okay, I didn't get born into it. I didn't go to a private school where I'm wearing a little insignia on my blue blazer. I don't have blue blood, old American money running in my veins. What is going to happen? Should I marry into this? That sounds like a good plan. And if you can do that, awesome. Highly recommend that. If you can't, you've got to learn some skills. And these skills were hard to come by. Like I said, I tried to take classes and I started studying psychology and applied psychology, persuasion, influence, everything from hypnosis to sales. And I realized that not only is this a learnable, teachable skill, but that especially, and for the purposes of this audience, most business owners, we procrastinate on this a ton. And I'll take a breath here in case Anna wants to ask me something, but I see business owners doing this and making these mistakes all the time. And I'm happy to get into that in a second.
Well, I think one of the reasons business owners procrastinate it, and this is the problem that everybody has, is they feel like there's no time.
Yeah.
I'm too busy to even think about it. Right. So what's your answer to that?
Right. I agree with that sentiment, right? So here's the problem that I see business owners having a lot of the time. Okay, I've got to do social media, got to get my website up, got to get my email list going, got to do a prototype, got to make sure I'm satisfying my customer service requirements. And I know how to do these 500 things that I've just listed. I don't really know how to do the networking thing. I go to mixers at the Chamber of Commerce or whatever, fine, but I don't really know. So instead of trying to figure out how to do this one thing I kind of don't have a handle on, why don't I just do the 99 other things that I do have a handle on?
And the other 99 things also have a formula. They have a checklist. They have a clear direction. They have a progress bar, right?
Exactly.
So that's the problem with networking, is that in many cases it's not codified for them.
And there's no kind of, if I do social media for 90 days, I can go, great, I have 3,000 more Twitter followers than I do. That breaks out to this, and this. If I go to a bunch of meetups and I create relationships and I help other people, I look at my ROI after 90 days or even after a year or 2 or 3 years and I go, I don't know. I mean, I've met some cool people, I guess. That's not really good ROI for most business owners who are trying to figure out how to pay the mortgage or how to pay their team. Mm-hmm. So I understand that procrastination, but here's the key concept that I think is problematic for a lot of business owners. This is a foundational subject. This is not an add-on or bonus skill set. If you do not learn how to create and maintain relationships, you are not immune to the consequences. You are just being willfully ignorant of the secret game being played around you. And that is a huge problem, because like putting a spare tire in the trunk of your car after you get a flat tire, it's too late to dig a well after you're already thirsty. You have to dig the well before you're thirsty. And that requires time. There is no real shortcut to creating and maintaining a great network. You can sign up for things like Business Mastery. You can go to great workshops and things like that that will speed things along. But if I showed up to a meetup with great people, no matter who I am, unless my reputation really precedes me, no matter who I am, I still have to invest the time and build the social capital. So if you find some, and we've all experienced this before, right? Your niece, nephew, son, daughter, or yourself 10 years ago, you needed a job and you went, oh, shoot, I need a job. I better start reaching out to people because I just graduated from college or whatever. I need to get a job. Well, you're too late. It doesn't mean you're not going to get a job. It just means that when you reach out to people and you go, hey, it's funny, I haven't seen you since I was like 6. I know you're friends with my mom's cousin. Anyway, I need a job, man. What you got? Nothing, right? And the same thing will go for entrepreneurs. You have to dig the well before you're thirsty. So in typical former teacher fashion, I want to give a piece of homework first before people forget. This is a thought exercise. It requires a little bit of writing, not a big deal, but imagine you get laid off from your job or your business implodes today. I mean, look, hypothetical, don't have nightmares about this. Imagine your business implodes today, or you just hit a rough patch. Who are the 10 or so people that you would contact to solicit their advice on what to do next? Write that list of 10 people or 20 people, then reach out to them now when you don't need anything specifically. This builds momentum in reaching out to dormant or weaker ties. And what it does is it gets you in the habit. You can do this every month if you want to, but this gets you in the habit of reaching out when you don't have an agenda. Because we've all been there where someone's like, hey, man, we should have coffee. And you go, wow, I haven't seen you in a long time. And you show up and they're like, so, Scientology. And you're like, check, please, right? You can't wait to get out of there. Or they're like, hey, buy my health shake. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I totally got duped. Then the next time you hear from somebody who you haven't heard from in a while, you're like, hey, it'd be great to catch up, but what's up? You know, and if you're reaching out to people and you don't have an agenda and you say, look, I just wanted to check in on you. It's been a long time. I remember we hung out at this conference 3 years ago, kind of wanted to reignite that, and no response necessary. Just get back to me whenever you can, if you can. When you say no response necessary, this is really helpful because what that says is, I'm not trying to make a sale.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives them an out. Yeah,
it gives them an out, and it says, okay, well, if you're not making me get back to you, Jordan, then maybe I will get back to it's really funny and counterintuitive. The more I say no response necessary or get back to me whenever you can, no big deal, if I don't hear from you, the more likely they are to respond. I've tested this. I've found that telling people don't worry about it. Very few people go, good, I didn't want to talk to you anyway. Delete. That almost never happens. People will say, oh, of course I'm going to respond. I haven't spoken to you in a while. Another exercise that I have for this that I do daily as a daily practice is I'll grab my phone and I'll scroll all the way. Yes, I have a purple phone. I'll scroll all the way down to the bottom of my list of texts. You know how there's people in there that you had lunch with once in like 2007 and somehow it's still in your list and you met them at a conference, you haven't re-engaged at all. I'll send them a similar script. Hey, Anna, it's Jordan. I haven't spoken with you in a while. I don't expect you to remember me, but we met at this Tony Robbins seminar. I don't expect you to have my number on my phone. Just wanted to reach out and say hello. It's been so long. No response necessary if you don't get a chance to get back to me, just saying hello. Mm-hmm. I'll do that 4 times a day, scrolling to the bottom of that list of texts where all the old ones are. That's a really simple system that already exists on pretty much everybody's smartphone to re-engage people you haven't spoken to in a while. If you don't have the person's number saved or it says something like ex-girlfriend, go ahead and skip it. But if it says something like Jim, Tony Robbins conference, go ahead and send a message. It doesn't matter if it's been 4 months or 4 years. If you don't hear from them, so what? If you do hear from them, you really have a short conversation. You're just re-engaging dormant and weaker ties. This isn't about making strong friendships yet, but this is a practice that will shake the rust off and get some momentum going. And I think that's very important for people who are thinking, oh, it's weird if I reach out and do this. You need to prove to yourself first that it's not weird, that it's not complicated, and that it's not going to take 3 hours a day when you have all this other stuff to do. These are things you can do in line at Starbucks waiting for your coffee.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that because somebody actually just asked, like, is there something like a checklist that you do every day, you know, to build your networking skills or to build your network? So that's a great daily thing that everybody can do. Yep.
Yeah. Everyone has it. It doesn't cost money and you don't have to plan it, right? Yeah. Just remember to do it.
And it's interesting too, because you gave, you know, the language that you use, but what's nice is that you can basically take that same message, that same outcome and tailor it to your own personality. So like I have certain phrases that I use or emojis that I use that also are an indication of, you know, my intentions and my personality, and it helps them sort of like remember who you are. So I think, you know, adding some flair into your text, completely acceptable because it just makes it more personal. I mean, Don't sound crazy, but
exactly. You might, keep it mid-level, neutral.
Keep it to like 1 exclamation point. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Not one emoji limit.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with that. Another mistake I think that leads people to thinking that this is going to take so much time. How am I going to get through this? It's impossible. Is never go to an event that is not curated. This is a massive time suck that I think a lot of people have that I find, I think it's a little bit of a bummer because people who are business owners go, I'm excited to go to these events. I'm excited to go meet people. I know networking is important. And then they look online and they go to see like Eventbrite or meetup.com or the local whatever. And they go to this event and they sit down and there's a folding chair, stale cookies, a guy in an ill-fitting suit who goes, great, everybody mingle. And you sit there, you're the new guy or gal, and 17 people are waiting in line to give you a business card for their car dealership, their financial planning thing that they have. And it's like, hey, if you ever need a retirement planner, give me a call. And you're just like, why did I go to this? I drove half an hour in traffic to get here. I paid for parking. I'm sitting through this thing. It's 90 minutes long. Now I got to go home. I'm hungry. Those are a waste of time. And they're a great way for people who are new to this or not new, but trying to expand on this to say, wow, networking is a waste of time. Imagine how many emails I could have answered during the time I just wasted going to the Learning Annex or some school gymnasium for a networking meetup. Never go to an event that is not curated. Curated means there's a specific selection of people that are invited. It could be business owners in Albuquerque. It could be dry cleaner owners only, carpet cleaner owners only, educators only. It doesn't matter. Those are curated, and there are even higher levels of curation above that. Some people have curation where it's like, hey, look, in our club, we have like YPO, for example, every business is $15 million or more, or for an example. That's good curation in a way because you end up with people who are going to have similar challenges, similar issues. And I know what people are thinking. Okay, great. I can't find a curated event. What do I do? If you can't get invited to an event that's curated, or you can't find an event that's curated, or you went to one that is and you still need to curate it more, create one of your own. And this is as simple as reaching out to people that you've met in other places or that you can reach out to online via social media, LinkedIn, and things like that, that let you invite small groups of people, 10 to 12, to a restaurant, coffee shop, or even your own home for a lecture on a specific topic. When I started doing this, what I did is I invited an expert on SEO, search engine optimization, to speak to a group of small business owners, including myself. And that person said, great, a chance to address 10 or 12 people is a friend of mine. Great. Everybody who was invited brought another person. So I invited 5 people that were like, I'm going to be there. They brought a friend. We had a full room. And then before that was over, I said, okay, who wants to teach next month's topic? Somebody raised their hand and said something like, oh yeah, I'm great at e-commerce shopping carts or whatever. So we did that every month for a long time. That was curated because people didn't come in and pitch. They weren't allowed to. We made some tight connections. People were allowed to bring different people each time, and eventually it got too big for my place and we moved it to a bar. And that ended up turning into something. I think the top we had was 25, but if you live in a small town, 25 business owners in your area showing up every month, and you're the center of that hub and spoke network, you are now the event coordinator of a curated networking event that is reasonably high level in your hometown. That puts you in a visible position. It creates you as the center of that hub and spoke, and it builds authority, and you're not stuck going to the YMCA. You have people coming to your house to meet up, network, and build relationships.
I think it's interesting you mentioned that because for a lot of other types of audiences, the very prospect of doing something like that would be petrifying. But the people you're talking to, I mean, think about it. You basically just said, well, look and see if there's something out there. If it doesn't exist, then create your own. Mm-hmm. That's what entrepreneurs are. They see gaps in the market. They see a need for a product or a service, so they create their own. And when you create your own, you have absolute power, which is awesome, over the nature of it, the time, the people that you're inviting. And so I think our audience in particular, this is an action item that every single one of you is not only fully capable of doing, but I think you'd be highly skilled, and I think you'd really enjoy it as well. If you've been to a Tony Robbins event, you can definitely handle 25 people.
Yeah, you would think.
Yep.
You would think. Yeah, you might have to do some jumping up and down to get yourself in state, but it is doable for sure.
Yeah.
Now, what I think a lot of people wonder next at this point is they go, okay, great. I love the idea of reaching out to people, reaching outward, reaching upward, but what do I do? What do I really say? I love saying, hey, I'm just checking in, but do I really want to do that every month with the same person?
That's going to be really funny because a question just popped in and they were like, I do the just checking in thing. I need to change it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that because it can be a little weird.
Annoying. It's annoying to yourself. It's probably annoying to other people too.
Definitely. Yeah. When people hit me up and they say just checking in, I don't mind. But after a while, I go, oh, do you just really have no idea of what's going on in anybody's life? Like you send this to everyone. So what I will do is I'll look, normally people I have in my phone, I'm connected to on some form of social media because, and we'll talk about the engagement totem pole in a little bit, but if
little light stalking, is that where you're going with
light
this?
Stalking. It's not stalking until they tell you to stop. Don't quote me.
No, but it's true to find out a little bit more and customize your message. But yeah,
exactly. So what I'll do is if I'm going, oh shoot, I don't really know what to say to this person, and looking back at my last text, it started with just checking in. What should I do? I might just hit Facebook if we're friends there because that's where people post a lot of personal stuff, and it'll say something like, just got back from Bali. It's so amazing. I love surfing. I might, instead of doing that, and I'll talk about this more in depth in a second, I might reference that trip. And that keeps things fresh. And I'm going to talk more about how to systemize keeping in touch with people in a second, which will include more about what to do rather than saying just checking in. But one concept I want to deliver really quick first that I think is extremely important that is overlooked all the time is everyone's, have you seen that movie, Glenn Ross, where he's like, always be closing, ABC, always be closing. You ever heard that?
Everybody has. Yeah.
Everyone's heard that. Okay.
Everyone here. Yeah.
So ABC, I get it. You're trying to close business. I like to say ABG, which doesn't quite ring the same, but I don't care. Help other people without the attachment of anything in return. It's always be giving, always be generous. One of the two. Help other people without the attachment to anything in return. Logistically, this is actually a lot easier than ABC because if you're trying to close business, if you're walking in a room and there's 100 people, if I'm a graphic designer, I'm only looking for the maybe 1 in 100 of those people that need graphics. That's a really small number of people, and now I'm fishing for a needle in a huge haystack of people. So I go, hey, Anna, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I work for Tony Robbins. Cool, do you need graphics? Well, no, I think we have okay, bye. Like, it's just, you're driving a wedge between everyone because you're looking to close business. Logistically, though, if I'm not trying to match a need with a service that I provide, and I'm just trying to figure out who in my network might be a good connection for the person I'm talking to in that moment, now I realize, okay, I have unlimited opportunity here because that means that for each of those 100 people, there's very likely somebody else in my mental Rolodex or my actual Rolodex that I can connect them to. Oh, I work with Tony Robbins and I do these webinars. Oh, great. Let me know if you need anybody from my show's guest roster because they might be really good speakers for your webinar. I'm not trying to sell you graphics. I'm trying to connect you with someone else in my network. This is important because it opens up opportunity that you couldn't see, and it becomes your value proposition. When your network is your value proposition and not your particular business or technical skill set, you have a lot more flexibility. If I'm a dry cleaner and I'm only looking for dry cleaning customers or suppliers or something like that, how many of those people am I going to run into at a random Chamber of Commerce meeting, even curated or not? Very few / zero. If I'm looking to hook everyone up who I meet to someone else in my network to potentially provide value, now I can almost certainly find someone to connect to anyone, which keeps me building social capital with every single person that I meet there, as well as the other people in my network who I'm referring. Does that make sense so far?
Completely.
Okay. Awesome. I know that can be a little bit complicated because people go, well, wait a minute. I'm fine helping other people. I always help other people. It's like, well, do you, or are you kind of thinking if it's convenient for you and then later on you try to figure out how to keep score or they owe you one? That's not what I'm talking about. I want people to go out there and think, don't worry about what I'm getting in return. Don't worry about an attachment to anything in return. Just try to figure out who plugs into who, regardless of whether or not you're a part of that equation. And that's hugely important because if you don't do that, what can happen is it leads to what we call keeping score. And I'll put this in a non-business context. I'll put it in a dating context because I think it's.
I was going to say that's
So like
people who have attended Date with Destiny who know Tony's relationship content, they definitely are familiar.
Oh, they know this? Okay, great. So pardon me if I'm repeating something that people have heard already a little bit, but keeping score leads to what's called a covert contract. And so what this means is I drive my friend Angela to the airport, and then I pick her up from the airport, and we're just friends. And then I drive to the airport, and I pick her up from the airport. And Angela's like, Jordan's such a good guy. He gets up early, and he drives me to the airport. And then one day I have too much whiskey, and I'm keeping score, right? I'm keeping score. If I just do this enough times, she's going to realize I'm the best guy in the world, and she'll love me finally. And this is not a real story from college. And then one day I have too much whiskey, and I'm like, Angela, I love you. Why don't you understand? I drive her to the airport all the time. And Angela's confused because she's like, what? We're just friends. And I'm like, no, I am always there for you, right? It's just this pathetic downward spiral, but you're keeping score. And so she's wondering what happened to the friendship. And I'm thinking, oh, I blew it up because in my head, I had created a covert contract whereby you start owing me something little by little every single time I do something. And I've got this covert contract, this agreement that only exists in my head. So when you break it by, in a business context, doing the same thing with the airport, and then I want to have you sell my dog grooming ebook to your audience of dry cleaners, you go, not a good fit, sorry, still friends. And I go, no, I'm mad at you, and I'm going to be passive aggressive for the next decade about this. I'm poisoning our own relationship. Yeah. You don't even necessarily understand why. Right? It blindsides you, and now I'm poisoning every relationship that I get because I'm creating these covert contracts because I'm keeping score. Yeah. So you really have to internalize that.
One way I think to make it easier to not keep score is to focus on what the other person has done for you. And when you were talking about AVG, I would say always be generous, always be giving, but there's another side to it, is always be grateful. So if you are focused, if you focus your mind on the positive things that other people do for you, and so instead of thinking, I've done 5 things for you, you've done 0 things for me, you're less likely to think about the 5 things that you've done for this person if you focus on the things that they've done for you. And by the way, when you focus on the things that they've done for you, you see the things that they do for you, but you also can get rid of some of your toxic relationships. Because if you try your darndest, right, and I sound very Midwestern right now.
Yes.
Try your darndest to see the value that that person brings to you in the relationship, and you still can't identify what it is, then you need to not be in a relationship with them.
Exactly. Yeah. If you're racking your brain, well, this person, I mean, no, that was me. Oh, wait a minute. No, they helped that one. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
You know, have they had the opportunity to do so? If they have and they haven't helped you, then fine. I want to avoid people going, oh, well, this person never helped me. It's like, well, you met them last week and you haven't talked to them in 2 years. So a toxic relationship.
You have to give them the opportunity to.
Right. Yeah. Right. So what you're referring to, I think, is the guy who you help move. And then a week later he goes, I'm moving too. Or you say, I'm moving too. And he goes, oh yeah, my back's really sore. I can't help you, dude. Or sorry, I got baseball tickets, man. I mean, if he's really got baseball tickets, maybe you change the date of that you're moving. But if he just says, yeah, sorry, I don't want to help you, that's somebody that's a taker. They will screen themselves out. But it's better to err on the side of helping more people, even if some of those people end up being takers, than is to not be ABG and then to withhold, because you will burn those bridges. You will burn those relationships.
Yep.
So there are some systems here that I think are important to note, because it's really easy to do the whole text 4 people a day thing, but sometimes we don't have phone numbers for people and we miss out on other folks that we meet, or we have professional contacts and maybe it's not appropriate to text your boss's colleague every month from your phone, even though you do have their mobile number.
Yeah. And somebody asked as well, what do you do if there's people that you would like to connect with, but you don't have like somebody on LinkedIn, for instance?
Yeah.
That's tricky ground. So that's something I think a lot of people would like to know about.
Sure. LinkedIn is great because LinkedIn is literally designed for cold outreach. There's something called InMail. I'm sure you've all seen it. It basically is, hi, I don't know this person. I want LinkedIn to massage this introduction here for $2 or whatever InMail costs, or for a monthly subscription. That stuff's important because LinkedIn is built for this, which means that if somebody gets a message from you on LinkedIn and it's InMail, they don't go, who are you? How dare you? Right? Whereas on Facebook, some people go, hey, look, man, this is for my kids. This is for my family. I'm not going to add you. No disrespect intended. If they're on LinkedIn, it's professional. Cold outreach is totally fine. And we can get into some scripts for that in a bit. I definitely use LinkedIn to reach out cold for my business, which is I interview what I think are amazing people, and I have to reach out cold a lot of the time, usually to their publicist or agent or their manager. A lot of celebrities and people that I interview are not on LinkedIn for obvious reasons, or they don't use it. But I use different types of systems to create and maintain my network. So other than the outreach that we just discussed, I have systematic network maintenance and I have opportunistic network maintenance. And what systematic is, it tends to be something that is a hardcore concrete system. So I use a CRM, which is like Salesforce is a CRM, for an example. I think it's overkill for networking, but if you have it for work or your business, you might want to throw networking people in there and just tag them. I use something called Contactually, which is just for networking. And what it does is it goes through your Gmail or your email inbox. It has a few programs it supports, and you play the bucket game. So people you've emailed recently, their names will float across the screen, and you can put them in the different buckets that you create. So 45 days, 90 days, 1 year. You might have some of your family in there if you're one of those people who needs a system for everything like me. You throw your cousins in there because you want to remember them, your brother, sister, whatever. Hopefully you remember to call your parents. And they float across the screen, and you type a key and it falls into the bucket. And then every day or every week, what you can do is log into Contactually, or it will email and remind you, and it will say, your 90-day bucket is, you haven't talked with Anna and Kelsey and Michael and Paul in 90 days. And so you click on their name and you can decide, well, I'm going to email them, and it'll pop open an email window. Or what I encourage you to do is, if you have their phone number, send them a text. And this has to do with the engagement totem pole. I'll talk about that in just a minute. But this will actually help you remember to talk with all of your contacts. You don't have to import every single Gmail contact. That would be a living nightmare. But it will get all of your recent contacts. It'll import people from your phone if you let it do that. And I also recommend importing, if you have Facebook, import the Facebook birthday calendar to your own calendar and wish people happy birthday not on their birthday, 2 to 3 days before. And the reason for this is because a lot of people on Facebook, or if you're using email or text, they're getting inundated on their birthday with messages. If you get it a few days before, and you can tell your calendar to remind you 2 or 3 days before, once you import it into your Mac or your PC calendar, it'll say, hey, it's Jonathan's birthday today. Send that person a text, send that person an email. You'll be the first one. And you can say, I know it's in a few days, but I wanted to be the first one to wish you a happy birthday. That gets you through.
Hope you're doing something fun. Do you have something planned? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. That cuts through the noise. If you send it on their birthday, they might not even see it. They're just going to go, oh, look at all these messages that say happy birthday. Click, 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 click. Mark is red. Or thanks, 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 done. Very rarely are they going to go through and answer 100 messages, and I understand that. So cut through the noise and get there first. So those are two systems, Contactually and importing the Facebook birthday calendar to your own calendar and setting alarms. Both of those things will keep you regularly in touch with your contacts in a regular, systematic way that you don't have to think about, which is great. You shouldn't be expected to remember 100 or 1,000 or 5,000 different contacts. It's impossible, and so it's not cheating. It's getting it done. And for opportunistic network maintenance, these are things that just happen to pass you by. So Facebook, another example, you log into Facebook if you have it, you see the news feed. Well, your friend had a baby. Instagram, you see the feed. Your friend got married. Instead of clicking like or making a comment that's like, oh my gosh, 100 emoji, thumbs up, smiley face, or even saying, wow, lucky you, I'm so happy for you. That's great. But on those big life events that hit everyone's Facebook feed that get a lot of likes, it generates a lot of noise. So the person who sees that is more likely to write one comment, thanks everyone, feel so hashtag blessed, right? That's going to end up in that comment on that Facebook picture or that life event. They're probably not going to reply to everyone. Totally makes sense. So what I like to do is jump ahead on the engagement totem pole. If you see that show up in Instagram, if you see it show up in Facebook, instead of clicking like, instead of writing a comment, send them a text if you can, if you have their phone number. If they're closer to you, give them a buzz, leave them a voicemail if you want to, if you feel like that's appropriate. Millennials are like, ew, call someone on the phone? No, I get that. Don't do that. And if
no, there's a way out of that, and Tony does this all the time.
Yep.
Send an audio. So it's I like doing that. You go to text somebody, you just record your message, then you send it. Done. Then they get the personal feeling, but you're not actually ringing their phone. It's coming in as a text.
Yeah, I dig that. And I think it's important to also keep those under a minute.
Yes.
I know that sounds like a long time, but we've all had the person who's like, I'm going to leave you a 4-minute audio while I'm driving.
No.
Hate it.
Yeah.
Hate it.
Good point. Yes.
Yeah. So keep them under 30 seconds, because you'd be surprised. Commercials are 30 seconds. And sometimes you're like, when is this over? I'm watching something. So that's you. Don't be a commercial in their life. Be a value add. So likes and comments are below the fold, I would say. A text, the audio, a phone call, well above the fold. And if you're close with them, then you can arrange to see them in person. If they just had a baby or just got married, it's a little rude to just be like, knock, knock, what's up, everybody? But if you're close enough, you should say, hey, I would love to catch up. I haven't talked with you in a long time. Really want to congratulate you. That is the highest level of engagement on the engagement totem pole. A lot of people stay below the fold. They stay below the fold because it's easy. But the thing is, when something is easy, there's a lot of traffic on that particular road, right? A lot of people click like. It's so low commitment. A lot of people type comments. It's such a low commitment. Email is, I would say, just below text and just above comments. I think it's on the fold, possibly below the fold if the person's really busy. If it's your grandma, it's above the fold. If it's somebody like Anna, me, whatever, a business contact that gets a bunch of email in your office, it's below the fold, because we all know that we deprioritize email, especially if it's for work, but not an actual task. Does that make sense? So stay above the fold. And in fact, I kind of like that term, below the fold. I just made it up now, and I'm going to keep it.
Write it down.
I'm doing it.
Send an audio to yourself about it.
Yes. For a minute.
Yeah. 30 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So stay above the fold. That's opportunistic network maintenance and systematic. So use both. Use your Facebook and Instagram feed if you use social media. Use systems like Contactually and importing Facebook birthday calendars to create those systems. Use the other sort of tiny systems like the texting thing that I gave you before every chance you get. You don't have to spend hours a day doing this. You don't have to spend this is minutes per day when averaged out. I have thousands of contacts. I dedicate 1 hour a week to emailing them every Monday. I do the texting thing in literally 5 minutes, probably not even that, from bed when I wake up in the morning, because I'm like, I don't want to do anything hard. I'll do that literally from bed. I try to make sure that I've run into a problem because I started getting up at 5, and now I'm like, if they're on the East Coast, cool. If they're not, they're like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So if you get up super early, don't do it.
Yeah.
Schedule it for your lunch hour.
So somebody in the comment section made a really good point. So I think, and by the way, all the comments have been really positive about this whole systemization thing, because I think that's a big pain point is people don't have, the tools and the scheduling and basically the system. But one thing, and I do this all the time, and some people are a little bit more likely, they'll use the system, but they want to have the freedom to be a little bit more organic. And I have this all the time. So we're our memories are triggered by certain things. So I'll be in the car and I'll hear a song, and it'll remind me of somebody that I haven't talked to in 8 years, because the last time that I heard this song, maybe we were on a road trip and we were singing along together, or I smell something, or I see like a certain type of tree and it makes me think of a word, and then that word makes me think of the person, right? So what's interesting is that when you have these random memories and you reach out to the person that you're thinking of, and this person echoed exactly the sentiment, it's not stalking, right? It's like, it's an organic memory. And it's kind of nice to do that outside of their life events. Like, hey, I just thought of you because of this. And what that does too is that it binds you because you both have that common shared memory. So it makes them think about it. So that's something that it's like a nice to have. And I would recommend people be open to that if that's something that fits your character.
I think that's a great point. And I think it involves a shred of mindfulness as well, because there's countless times, I know for me, there are countless times where I look at something and I go, oh, that's so funny. That dog looks like my friend Jake's dog. And then I just go on with my life. And now over the past few years, I've realized, oh, that looks like my friend's Jake's dog. Get out my phone and text or email Jake and say, hey, I saw somebody who looked just like Charlie. Is he still around? How are you, by the way? I haven't talked to you for a while. Objects, memories like songs, smells, places, all of these things can be triggers. When's the last time I was in this restaurant? Oh, that's right. It was with my Aunt Teresa. Hold on a second. What's she up to? And if you don't have email or phone for them, then you can just make a to-do. Or if you're busy and you're with people, you don't have to go, hold on, everybody. I'm going to email somebody randomly. It can be a little rude. Throw it in your to-do app, which I assume everyone here probably has one of those. Throw it in there. Email Aunt Teresa. It'll show up later. It doesn't have to be done in the moment, but you should use that opportunity to your advantage, because otherwise it could be years before you think of that person again. So keep people above the fold.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
I think a lot of folks also struggle, especially nice giving people, like I assume the folks are in Business Mastery. A lot of people make this mistake, and I made this mistake for years. I was ABG like crazy. I was hardcore. I was giving, and people would go, well, what can I do for you? And I'd be like, oh, I don't want to ask for anything because I'm building all this social capital and I'm going to use it later, maybe somehow. And what I didn't realize is you should ask for help when you need it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but you're giving other people the opportunity to reciprocate. People want to do this. This is the law of reciprocity. People want to help you. It's not something where you go, oh, I'm burning some of my chips by asking for this. You know, hey, can I help you with it? Or I'm looking to expand my blog. I know you have a blog. Can I write a guest post for you? You're not burning social capital. You're actually strengthening the relationship. And the way that you can phrase it is just ask for what you need. And you can say, if this is not a fit for some reason, that's totally cool. Because what you want to do is make people comfortable saying no, because we all fear rejection, but we actually counterintuitively want to make this easier for the other person to reject us if needed. Because what we don't want is for them to go, sure, Jordan, yeah, do a guest post. And then they're like, oh my God, I can't have a guest post. I don't want him to write on my blog. Now I'm going to avoid him for a month, right? You don't want that. Or a year. You don't want that to happen. You want to go, if this isn't a fit for you, totally cool. You don't have to answer me right now. You can think about it. And then when you follow up and you say, hey, have you given any thoughts about my dog washing ebook on your blog? I'd love to throw a little article up there. You can say, actually, I'm not sure that's a fit for my editorial calendar. And you go, no problem. And again, you're not keeping score, so there's no grudge, there's no issue there. But you're getting better at asking people for help. Because on the other side of the equation, and this is your homework, I think, right now, on the other side of the equation, think about a challenge that you yourself are dealing with and ask someone you know either for help with that or for an introduction to someone else who might be able to help with this. This is called the Ben Franklin effect. This is how it strengthens relationships. The Ben Franklin effect. Y'all familiar with that? Or I can explain it real quick if necessary. I'll explain it real quick.
Yeah, so, I would go for that. Yeah. So we're not gonna get a response that quickly. Just say it.
Yeah, no problem. I thought you were gonna say so. Like, no, we don't know it. So what the Ben Franklin effect is this? I think comes from an old Dale Carnegie book. Ben Franklin, which is one of his favorite examples. Ben had some enemy in the Senate or the Congress or whatever it was that he was doing. And Ben was trying to repair this relationship. And the guy collected books. And now in Ben Franklin's day, a book cost about as much as a sports car. It was super valuable. They were super rare. Books were printed. Maybe there was a few dozen. Maybe there were a few hundred popular books. Maybe there were a few thousand. They were impossible to get. So Ben found out that this guy had a rare edition of a book that Ben wanted to see, in theory. So what he did is he said, hey, can I see this rare edition? I've heard you're a great collector of books. You're probably the only person around who has it. And he didn't say, I know we don't get along, or I know you hate my guts. He just said, I would love to see that edition of the book. Now, the other guy, being the gentleman and upstand that he was, said, sure thing. He sent the book to Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin, I think, held on to it for a few weeks, maybe read it, maybe didn't, sent it back. This guy and him, they weren't fast friends, but that started the repair of the relationship. This works when you ask people for advice. It works when you ask people for help. It works when you ask people to help you out in any way, introductions or anything. What it does is, in our brains, for some reason, we actually rationalize, okay, well, I helped this person, so maybe I don't dislike them as much as I thought I did, because I wouldn't have helped somebody whose guts I actually hate. So, of course, if the person says, no, take this book and shove it where the sun don't shine, you got a problem on your hands. But if they go, all right, okay, I'll make the introduction for you. Now, you're probably going to get that introduction. And what's going to be great about that is now you've built social capital with a new connection, and you've started to regenerate the relationship that you have with someone else. This is not for people with whom you have damaged relationships. It's not only for that. This is for people with whom you have any kind of relationship, but you're feeling a little bit shy about, oh, I don't know if I should ask. And here's a little cheat. If you're the type of person that thinks, oh my gosh, I cannot reach out to somebody and ask for help, I'm not that kind of person, I really don't do it, ask on behalf of someone else that is close to you. And so what that might be is something like, well, I don't want to ask somebody for help because I'm really shy, or I feel like I might get rejected, or I have some sort of fear around that. What you can do is say, hi, my daughter's looking for a piano tutor in the area. Would you consider introducing me to yours? Or instead of, I really need to know the names of all the piano tutors in my town, I just moved here, you can say, does anybody want to help this? Or my mom has an IT question about her computer, even though you're the one who's fixing it, because we all know you got to fix mom's computer. You can ask on behalf of your mom. And it seems it's a little cheap, because if they say no, you go, well, they're not going to help my mom. You don't go, oh, I'm not likable now, or whatever sort of like invisible programming you have in your head that's causing you to fear asking people for help, that fear of rejection. So that's a little cheap. Ask on someone's behalf who's close to you.
Right. So Jordan, you had mentioned, people with whom you sort of have like something broken, like something that happened in the past, or things aren't so strong, and somebody's asking, do you have any tips on how to mend something like that?
Yeah,
yeah,
I do. That can be problematic. It depends on, is the relationship a weaker tie, or is this like, oh yeah, I worked for that guy and I just stopped showing up and now they hate me?
They said broken, so
that's pretty broken. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So first things first, what I like to do, and this is a little bit of this might be an advanced move, but I don't think so. I like to actually call the person, or if I can, stop by their place of work, their office, whatever, during a time that might be appropriate. And I'll say, hey, is now a good time? And they'll go, no. And I'll say, great. What works for you? I wanted to actually talk to you about something really quick. Won't take more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And they'll go, okay, fine. If that is a good time, whatever, you're right there, you pop in or you talk with them on the phone. And you might even say, you start off by apologizing, first of all, even if it's not your fault. You don't have to accept responsibility for whatever the problem is, but you should absolutely start with an apology. You can say something like, hey, I know that I worked for you years and years ago, and I just wasn't in a really professional space. I was young, and I ended the relationship by not showing up. And I really know that I let you down, and I feel really awful about it, and I lose sleep over it. And I'm not necessarily asking you to forgive me, but I really do want to apologize because I've grown a lot since then. And then the other key is, and I want to thank you for blank, right? So apology, and then I want to thank you for blank. I want to thank you for giving me that opportunity in the first place. And even though you may not have intentionally taught me that lesson, the guilt that I had from just not showing up after all that time has taught me the value of upholding my commitments, because it's not been worth it for me to feel bad about this for so long. And you know what the other person's going to say 90% of the time? I already forgot about that. As far as I'm concerned, you're a good kid who made a mistake, and you're going to repair that relationship. If it's more severe, the formula still holds. You can apologize to somebody you've done serious wrong to.
Yeah.
If you say that you apologize and you appreciate what they've done or given you this opportunity for blank, because what it does is it allows them to let it go because they know you feel bad, and you're showing gratitude, which I know y'all are big on that.
Yeah.
Very powerful combination.
Yeah. And if they choose to hold that grudge, it's on them, not you.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So a bunch of questions pouring in. There are two specific ones that I particularly like. One of them is around if you're going to a networking meeting, right? So one of your curated networking events, what's a nice way to approach someone or meet people, better than like the typical, like, oh, what do you do? Like, what are some good, not pickup lines, but you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I do. What I like to do when I go to these events is, instead of what do you do, what I will normally say is something more open-ended. Like, what brings you here, or who did you come here with? Of course, you might say like, hey, I'm Jordan. So who did you come here with? Right. And what that will do is it allows them to answer in a very open way. So who did you come here with? Oh, I came here with a few other colleagues from Apple. Great. Now I kind of have their company. I know there's other people in the room that they came with. Oh, really? What division? I've got friends over there. Oh, I'm in engineering and design. Great. Okay. Now that you've got the conversation started, but you didn't say, so what do you do for work? Oh, I'm an engineer. Cool. What do you do, Jordan? Oh, I'm a talk show host. Cool. oh, they have crab rangoon. See you later, right? Like that's how those normally go.
Yes.
And you can avoid that. You should start with something like, what brings you here? And usually they're not going to go networking. Usually they're going to say, oh, well, I know the organizer, Tommy, from college, and we both went to Brigham Young. And then he has been inviting me to these things for like 6 months and I never go. So here I am. Now you've got context and background that isn't just what they do. So these two questions, what brings you here and who do you come with? You can stack them together if you want. You can start with either one of them, and they're much better than the usual fare.
Yep, great. So another one was about following up, but in a very specific situation. So let's say you are friends with somebody or you have a professional connection, and they said they would be willing to introduce you to a particular individual. They say they're going to do it, but then they don't do it. So how often do you check back? What's the right language to use when you're basically like, okay, you gave me a verbal agreement on this, but there's no action? And, you know, honestly, I'm guilty of it all the time. I tell people, oh yeah, of course I know that guy, I'll like introduce you, no problem. And then it just falls off my to-do list and then I forget about it. So what's the right way of sort of reigniting that, like reminding them of that?
Yeah. So what I will do is I will immediately write down something in my to-do list that says circle back or heard back. I use the, excuse me, I use the abbreviation HB, heard back from Anna about intro to TR, you know, something like that, right? Which I'm sure people ask you for that all the time. And people will get stuck on this. They'll go, oh, I didn't hear from them. They just hate me.
It's the worst phrase. Yeah, I didn't hear back. Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool excuse for like not doing anything yourself. So what I'll do is I'll circle back usually a week later because some people are busy or they're out of town or they forgot and it's totally fine. If it's not time sensitive and an introduction almost never is unless you're like, I need a lawyer because I'm in jail, right? Then you can circle back faster. But if you're looking for an introduction to somebody, I'll circle back within 5 to 7 days and I'll say, hey, Anna, just circling back about that introduction to so-and-so. I know things are really hectic. No rush on this. And you got to let them have a way out. And if you're no longer comfortable making that introduction, I totally get it. No problem. No harm, no foul or something like that. Because sometimes we don't hear back because the person goes, oh, shoot, I just met up with that person I said that I would introduce at lunch. And they said, I'm inundated with all these intros. If I get another intro for an engineer that wants a job, I'm going to punch somebody in the face. And you go, yeah. Not doing that. But then you don't want to reach out and go, hey, Anna, I know I told you I'd introduce you to my boss, but man, he does not want to hear from you. Because I'm kind of embarrassed at this point, right?
Yeah.
So I go, all right, this isn't really going to work. So I might just like let it die. A lot of people will do that. There are ways to solve this problem if you are asked to introduce people, and I can go over that. But what I would do to answer your question here is I would circle back within 5 to 7 days, ask about the introduction and give them that way out. If you're no longer comfortable making it, I totally understand. No problem. Because that gives them the ability to go, oh, I'm so glad that you're not annoyed by that. I actually spoke with him and he really is, he's traveling for 3 months. He doesn't really want me to do this right now. And then you can say, no problem. Do you think it would be appropriate to circle back in a couple of months? And the other person might say yes. Or they might say, actually, he said never to make introductions via email. Everybody should make an appointment in the office. Or they'll just say, no, he hates you. You're never going to get to him. And that's fine too.
End of story. All right, we have time for one more question. This is, you might have heard this before, but this happens all the time in our world, right? So Tony is very much about empowering other people with the tools and strategies that he has himself, right? And it's all about leverage. It's all about giving other people the same abilities that he has so that you can basically amplify your efforts. And one of the struggles as a CEO, as a company founder, is that you have, your trusted people all around you. And in many cases, it's a sales team. And you have gone to a Tony Robbins event or you've read all the books about XYZ that you could possibly consume. And you have the skills and you have the formulas, but your team doesn't. So what is a way that you can, as the leader of your organization, provide your key members of your team with a lot, I mean, you can send them the link to this webinar, right?
Yeah.
But what are some almost like a boot camp or some resources, or just, you know, what's a good way to get them started to enable them with the same skills and yeah, formulas that you've provided here today?
So I would say there's a couple of things. First of all, if you just say, oh, go to my website that I have a lot of these drills on is advancedhumandynamics.com. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would love for people to send people there. But here's what happens when you do that. They go, sure. Right. And they never go. Yeah. Yeah. So what I would do is I would say, teach them.
Mobilize your team. Yeah. How do you get them? Yeah.
Exactly. Teach them. Whoa, that turned on when I did that. That's interesting. All right. So good thing there was nothing on there. So teach them that texting re-engagement drill where you scroll all the way to the bottom and say, hey, look, guys, just try this for the week. If this is working for you, come back. I've got more. Because people will do that and go, wow, this is really useful.
Yeah,
what a
and
simple
easy.
Little hack and easy, and they don't have to buy anything.
Yep.
And then when they want more, you can send them to this webinar, of course, but at advancedhumandynamics.com without a stutter in there. You can click on level 1. I've made a bunch of videos that have a lot of the drills that I've spoken about today and like a dozen more that are all about re-engaging, digging stronger wells or creating stronger ties, turning dormant and weaker ties into stronger relationships, maintaining this stuff systematically, maintaining this stuff over time in a way that's not going to take 7 hours a week to do, because this is what I like to do. Your team won't do it if they're overwhelmed and they don't see the value. So teach them the texting thing. Get them onto those drills. They're so easy. Nothing that I teach is going to take more than a few minutes each day. Nothing.
Great. Perfect. And by the way, our producer has put all the links that Jordan just mentioned. They're all in the chat. So you can refer there for the direct links to all the resources that he just pointed you to. Cool. Well, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great fun. It was, fun, useful. So everybody listening, we would love it if you guys shared this, not just with the people that you want to mobilize on your own team, but also just with friends, family, anybody that you think would find this useful. You can share the link to this recorded webinar on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn so they can watch it on their own time. You can also see it again on the Tony Robbins YouTube channel, and our producer is going to put that in the chat right now. She just popped it in. Watch that one from Kelsey. And I want to thank everyone. So in the spirit of gratitude, of course, as Jordan pointed out, this is very big in our world. So really, really grateful to you, Jordan, for taking the time to teach everybody all of these super important skills and strategies. And thank you guys for taking the time to tune in. We hope it was useful and actionable. And we're looking forward to next month with more insights and strategies that are going to help grow your business and your career.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Of course. Thanks, Jordan.